Welcome to Always Coachable, conversations with athletes, leaders, coaches, and high performers about growth, mindset, and the lessons that shape us over time. I'm Sandy Cohen, and today's guest is Braden Pearl. Braden is a medical doctor and the founder of Advancement Hockey Agency, and he's built both of those at once. He's a family medicine resident at McGill University and on his way to celebrating in sports medicine. And at the same time, he founded and leads AHA, guiding elite hockey players as they climb to the next level of their careers. So two very demanding paths, medicine and building a business. And he chose to walk both at the same time. And here's why I wanted you on the show, Braden. You're a builder. I think you are a thinker, an organizer, a leader, and you've done it all at a remarkably young age. To have built what you've built at just 31 is genuinely impressive, and I've wanted to understand how someone puts that kind of life together this early. So, Braden, my man, welcome to the show.
Sandy, thanks so much for having me, and quite the intro. Honestly, I'll try and live up to the hype there, but really appreciate you having me on.
Well, let me ask you that. How close is what I said to how you see yourself?
Good question. I would say, well, the intro was actually pretty spot on, honestly, and I can give a bit of a backstory as to how it kind of happened, if that'd be helpful for your audience. But how I see myself, I'd like to think I have some confidence in everything, but obviously I don't want to toot my own horn or anything like that. So I guess where I get started is the backstory, how it all kind of happened. So I played junior hockey after high school, and it was a bit of a suitcase at first when I was playing, but then managed to get an NCAA D3 commitment. Went down there, went and played in the States. Had a good time there for 4 years, had a really good experience, learned a lot of life lessons, had some really good experience with my teammates and everything. And there, like, the goal for me was always to go to medical school. I was a major in biochemistry and basically did everything you need to do, take the MCAT, all of that stuff. Didn't get in my first year to med school. So as I was kind of applying and trying to get back in, from there, like, I actually had a side job to be a substitute teacher at a local prep school. And there they had a hockey team. And part of my job was in the afternoons, go and skate with these guys, practice with them, help them out and all of that stuff. And then slowly but surely, they started asking questions, like, oh, how'd the junior hockey path work? How'd the NCAA hockey path work? What was your experience like? I would answer their questions. And then it kind of just evolved into, hey, can you call this coach for me? Can you help place me on this team? It's like, sure. Like, I know Bob from whatever, from Hawkesbury, or, Rick from Smith Falls in the CCHL. So I'd call these coaches, and then I started helping them get placed and all that stuff. And then next thing you know, like a couple of months in, I had like 20 parents and players call me each night. And I was like, okay, I should probably start charging a little bit of money for this because it's taken a lot of my time. So that's kind of the origin story, how it happened. And I was kind of on a solo mission for like a year or so. Then I got into med school. I was like, okay, like, if I'm going to do this, like, I'm going to have to build a team and, build something of value that doesn't fully rely on me, because med school is going to be pretty demanding. So from there, just started hiring like some key people, and you kind of learn things as you go through business. You hire the wrong people and you kind of go through some growing pains, but eventually it kind of built in the right way, kept going through med school, kept building the team, started posting things online, putting some information out there. And slowly but surely, as med school was kind of going on, kept doing this, and actually got guys like Stefano, who's now leading the charge at AHA, and just kept building ever since. So that's a bit of a long-winded story to say the backstory, how it all kind of happened, and where I'm at now. So hopefully it kind of helps paint the picture for the audience.
Show's over. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining us. So take me back, though. Once you, I guess you really didn't know what you were creating at the time.
No.
But at that time in your life, was there any really kind of set path for where you thought what is now AHA would grow into? Were you nervous to kind of start putting stuff together? Did you have the thoughts, well, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's the way I describe it to people. It's the best accident that ever happened. You know, it was never the goal to become a hockey agent or build an agency. It just kind of happened, and because I kind of just saw the demand over time. And honestly, it's the service I wish I would have had back when I was playing. There were advisors back then, but a lot of them weren't great, honestly, and they didn't kind of put that information out there. Before it was very hush hush and information wasn't really shared on social media. And I'd like to think that we made a change towards that landscape, honestly. But no, the idea was never to start a hockey agency, and it just kind of happened over time. In terms of putting the info out there and helping people, obviously, like as you go through things, you always ask yourself, okay, it's like, is this actually useful? Am I actually helping people? Is this worth doing? Is this actually going to work out? For sure, those thoughts go through your head sometimes. But what helps me a lot is to say, you know what, I'm doing it in the service of people. I'm really trying to put information out there that I wish I had and that's going to help people out. So with that as like the guiding North Star, the guiding principle, that usually helps cut through the mental clutter and the noise, and motivates me to keep posting and to keep putting info out there and stuff.
If there's what, there's probably at this point maybe 6 or 7, as I'm doing this podcast and speaking to other people like you that I've great respect for. There are definitely some themes that are starting to pop up for people that I would say, such as yourself. And what you just said is absolutely one of them. That what was really kind of the guiding star was being of service and trying to better others. That it wasn't obviously everybody has to feed their family, but it sounds like your origin, it wasn't a money play. It was a service, a provide value play. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. That's always been since the get go. Again, like I said, we started for, I would say, the first like 4 months, it was all free. It was all because I was trying to help these players out. And eventually, because there was so much demand, that I was like, okay, I need to start charging money for my time. But it was never a money play. It never has been. And it's always going to be value first. And I'm a big believer, if you provide value first, the money kind of flows in afterwards. So,
yep. When did you realize that you kind of had something that was going to be something pretty legit? Like, what was there a moment as this thing that started as AHA? Like, when did you realize that you had something?
I would say there was a few moments. One of them was when our social started taking off. Because at first, when I started putting information out there, the classic reaction from a lot of people I knew was like, aren't you afraid, like, if you put the info out there, people won't need you anymore? I was like, you know what? If that's the case, it is what it is. Like, I kind of want to put the info out there for it to be useful for everybody. And at first, there was no traction. And then after like a few months, like maybe 3-4 months, the views started popping off on the YouTube channel. We started gaining followers on Instagram, TikTok, out of all places and everything. At that point, I was like, okay, I think there's significant traction, because as those views started coming up, people started reaching out to us for the first time for advice, for help and everything, not just referrals and cold outreaches and all of that. So that was like one moment. I would say the second moment is when I hired Stefano, who you know very well as well. He was, I would say, the biggest key hire we've ever had. And it kind of opened my eyes like, okay, wow, like if you hire the right people and you bring in the right talent on your team, the doors just unlock.
How did you, I hear this a lot from athletes. Obviously I speak a lot with athletes and coaches, but how did you know how to do that? Like, that's a skill, right? To be able to build a team. How did you know how to do that?
Well, it's trial and error through like when I first did my few hires, like at first, a lot of them didn't work out, some fizzle over time. There was never like any terrible hires, but there's a lot of them that just kind of fizzle out and stuff. And then as you kind of go through it, whether you're a coach of a team or you're building a business, whatever it is, you kind of start to see like the green and the red flags in people as you're hiring them and going through it. And then Stefano, like right off the gate, I was like, okay, this guy definitely knows what he's talking about. He's definitely a sales guy. He knows how to talk to people. He's got good communication skills. He knows his stuff in hockey, and he's a workhorse. And those three things right there is like, this is definitely the guy that we need on.
So how did you know though that those were three just critical skills? Like somewhere in your mind, you had to have picked that up somewhere in your life, whether it was being a part of a team or whatever it was, where you had to learn that, or somebody had to tell you that those are the things that will make a successful team member. Was there a situation like that for you?
I'd say, well, growing up through hockey and being a part of winning and losing teams, you definitely learn it indirectly through there. I don't think I when I was playing hockey, like I stopped and analyzed exactly like what makes a good team member, what doesn't. I think this happened more as I was building AHA and the business. But I think as I was building the business, like I said before, with the early hires, I kind of saw the reasons why they would kind of drop off. Either they weren't incentivized correctly, either they just, were busy with another job, or they didn't want to put in the work. Either they just didn't really know the hockey landscape very well. So you kind of, as you have the hires that don't really work out, you kind of notice, okay, like this is what I'm looking for, this is what I don't want. And then when you meet phenomenal people like Stefano, for example, I'm like, yes, this is exactly it. And then once you see an employee actually do the work properly, and you're like, oh my God, where's this guy been my whole life? That's the new benchmark. Then you're like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for. These are the qualities, this is the type of person. And now once you have one example, you kind of systemize that. And when you're doing your interviews, you know exactly what you're looking for at that point.
And do you think for you, that has changed over the years? That if you take you right now back to when you started it, and even though, Stefano, obviously very good hire, do you think AHA would be in the same place? Like if you knew then what you know now about how to build a team, would it have been the same? Would it have happened faster?
It would happen way faster because in business, and this can apply in hockey or anything else in life, I think you have to pay like what's called the ignorance tax at first, is when you don't really know what you don't know, and you kind of go through it and you stumble along and you learn things as you go. It takes a lot of time. Once you learn those key lessons, if I had to rebuild AHA from the ground up, I know exactly what to do. So it'd be a lot quicker.
Was that a humbling thing for you to have to go through those lessons?
Definitely, like anything. And you learn, like, to tie it to hockey players that are watching, or anyone, like you have to push through difficult things and uncomfortable things to learn key lessons. And by doing that, you learn these things, and then you know them moving forward. So the feedback loop gets way smaller at that point. So
do you think that trait has been something also that you kind of built when you were younger, like through your hockey career? I mean, that kind of resiliency or grit or just tenacity, whatever it is, like where did that come from?
I would say so. I think sports is an incredible life teacher, honestly, because you have to deal with a lot of failure and a lot of feedback telling you, you know what, your skills just aren't up to par. For example, if you try out for a AAA team and you don't make it, the hard truth is that you just didn't have quite the skills to make that team, and you have to analyze and say, okay, what do I need to do to get better and make that team the following year? If you get scratched, same thing, if you don't get as many points as you want in a season, same thing. You have to kind of step back, analyze, and try and improve. And I think sports just teaches you that, automatically. Now, I think for me, obviously you learn it unconsciously at first, but as you like start to age and start to reflect a little bit more, and I started reading books, and there was, what was the name of the book? It was by Tim Grover. He was Michael Jordan's trainer. It was,
Relentless? Is it?
Relentless. That's the first book I picked up. I was like, oh, this is the mindset that it takes. So like, push through discomfort, always try and get better, become obsessed with winning. Like, this is what it takes to really push and get to the next level. And then I read that, and then obviously I went through the rabbit hole of reading a bunch of other books on self-improvement and just getting better overall. And yeah, so I went more from like unconsciously learning these lessons through sports, and then over time, like consciously acknowledging them and learning them. So.
One of you just said it. One of the other themes that always comes up in these podcasts is some concept of people such as yourself being what I would call a hunter, right? They're either hunting for knowledge, they're hunting for feedback, hunting for a way through. How can we? They seem very, very driven for continued growth. Do you think that applies to you?
100%. Like for me, I would say I'm always trying to see what edge can I gain to win, and whatever I apply myself in, like if whatever it takes, like I'm gonna find a way to do it, and that's where like you often hear the concept of work life balance thrown around out there. But if you want to be truly great at something and accomplish something that's great, phenomenal, or something that's never been done before, you got to throw that concept out of the window. There's seasons in life, and you have to have seasons of obsession on whatever your goal is. And that applies for anybody who's going through hockey or whatever sport. If you really want to be the best and play at the highest level, you need to obsess over it. There's no way around it.
I love that. I love that. What do you say when people in your either professional life or whatever, personal, anywhere, where you always have those people that say, like, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. Or, just take a breather. I mean, what you just said about that obsessed sort of mindset, don't you agree that all high performers that you have come in contact with, they share that gene?
100%. I've never met a guy that's made the NHL at a high level or completely crushed it in business or whatever endeavor they're doing that's crushed it at a high level, that's not constantly thinking about it and thinking how to get the edge and thinking how to get better. It just doesn't exist. Like the competition for whatever you're doing is so fierce that if you're not completely locked in and sweating the details and really trying to be your best self in that whatever endeavor that is, you're just going to get outcompeted. That's just the reality of it. Obviously, like that doesn't mean sacrificing your sleep and not doing like the little things to recover and to stay happy in life. There's definitely a balance there, but to really succeed, like you have to go all in on the thing that you're doing, honestly.
How long after AHA was up and running did you start going to medical school?
It took about a year and a half, and then medical school started at that point.
And was that something that you feared? How am I going to do all of this? Or were you just saying, you know what, I'm gonna find a way? Like, were you confident in your abilities?
Yeah, it was like the I'll find a way, and it was definitely rough for the first few months to do both because like managing a business obviously takes a lot out of you. Just like if you're playing for a highly competitive team, it's an everyday thing. You're always like trying to obsess and get the best that you can be at that. And medical school also requires that.
Sure.
And honestly, it was a bit of a similar adaptation thing from when I went from junior hockey to college hockey. Because college hockey, you have those two big things, right? You have your undergrad that you need to do really well at. You have to do well in school, and it's a full time thing. And so is the sport that you're playing. Like you're playing every single day. There's always something you have to do to be able to excel at that level. So it was almost like the same thing in a way. There was like the hockey side or the hockey agency, which is not, I'm not an athlete anymore, but it was like creating a business and managing that. And then there was the school piece that I had to manage. One thing I had to change though was my the way I was learning because medical school compared to undergrad is a little bit different. Well, it's quite a bit different, but in undergrad, it's the rate of information that you're absorbing is much slower. Whereas in medical school, the classic example is they say it's like getting hit with a fire hydrant of information. There's so much information that comes your way that you need to be able to process a good chunk of that information, figure out what the signal is, and ignore the noise. And that's something that you really have to adapt to in medical school, and you have to completely reframe your learning systems. So for me, to answer your question, I had to find a way to one, completely reshape my systems, become extremely efficient to learn what I need to learn. And then from there, I'd basically be efficient in running and managing the business. I really had to filter out all the noise and go right for the signal to be able to do both.
So do you know where that came from, that concept, of who kind of?
The signal to noise.
Yeah.
So
Do you know the
it
story?
came I heard, well, it comes from Steve Jobs, I'm
That's
pretty
right.
sure. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I actually heard it on an interview from Kevin O'Leary. That's where
That's
I
exactly
first
right.
heard the concept.
That he said that one of the things he said that Steve Jobs was a prick, but the thing that he learned from Steve Jobs was
Yeah,
that, yeah.
exactly. And
Um, what a great
I,
lesson.
it's a phenomenal lesson, honestly. Like to succeed at anything in life, the faster you can find signal, the more successful you're going to become.
So what would you consider? That's so interesting. So what would, if we took that on the other side, what would you consider noise in your world? What is noise?
Something that doesn't move the needle towards your goals. So whatever your goals are, if it noise is like, for example, it in our I'll try and find an example for like hockey players
Or anything, anything.
or anything. Okay. Let me think of a good example here. So for business, for example, to really move the needle, finding like new clients, giving good client experience, getting key hires. These are the things that I want to spend my time on to try and move the needle. You know, what's not going to move the needle is me just replying to emails all day, me just, kind of doing research, consuming videos that doesn't really make me do actions that are really going to move the needle. Typically what moves the needle the most is get like, following up with your clients, making sure everything's okay, reaching out to coaches, to help them get placed for our specific business, posting content to attract more people. These are the true needle movers. Whereas like replying to emails, doing little admin things, I don't know, reorganizing my documents. That's all busy work. That's all noise. That doesn't really truly move the needle. And the hardest thing is figuring out what the true signal is.
Which for you do you think came first? Do you think that you identified the signals and therefore anything that wasn't that became noise, or do you think you said, okay, this stuff doesn't seem to be working, therefore this is the signal?
Probably the second piece, honestly, because at first you don't really know what's signal and what's noise. You have ideas, and then you test them out. You're like, okay, this did not move the needle at all. And as you go through it, you learn, okay, this actually moves the needle quite a bit, and you want to triple down on that. And then as you go through more and more, you find out more things that are signals, and you're like, and you figure out what's noise, and you kind of just keep narrowing in on what really works and what doesn't. And that's why, like coming back to what we said a while ago, if I had to restart AHA, I know the top 5 things I need to do to rebuild the business. I have to do it from the ground up. So, and again, it's the same for hockey. Like in hockey, you learn, okay, if I actually practice this way, if I focus on this, for example, the mindset piece, instead of ignoring the mindset piece, if I go all in on these specific tactics that I know make me perform better, X amount could be like 2 times better, 3 times better, whatever it is. It's actually worth focusing on versus doing all this other stuff that's really not changing my performance that much.
So without giving away any of your the inner workings of your business or anything, how many people are employed by AHA, right? So the way the business works, right? There, you guys have a bunch of agents, or is it what you call them, advisors?
Yep.
How many do you have?
We have
About.
roughly 45. So most of them, I would say 30 or so are on the men's hockey side. Another 8 to 10 are on the women's side. And then we just expanded to other sports recently. So we have another, like, I think 5 or 6, like one per each sport. Basically, that's kind of building it up. So,
So with so many things, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but how do you structure your days to be able to kind of keep all the balls in the air, right? Because for so many people, that's a challenge of, oh my gosh, right? They get very, it seems like almost stuck in a horizontal priority line, right? And without giving one thing more time or attention, right? Like something has to come first. So for you, how do you keep everything moving with your studies and all your other responsibilities?
yeah. So I would say honestly, this is where having a great team comes into place, and building the team is really one of the highest leverage activities that I could do. So, and now it's actually a step further where Stefano manages the entire team, basically make sure everything's in the right direction. That leaves me time to, one, focus on medicine, but two, focus on the next big things that we need to focus on as a company, sportability being an example. Um, so how to actually do it, I would say,
Or how do you do it?
How do I do it? So finding incentive structures that work, that incentivize the like that incentivize one your advisors and your agents to get clients themselves. That's one of the biggest things. From there, the ones that manage the advisors. So we don't like to have groups of more than five, max seven people, because that's what's shown in the literature, where for leadership to actually work. If you have bigger groups than five, or small groups of 5 to 7 people, it kind of just breaks down. So we have really small sub teams. So we basically have our set of like five advisors or so. We have a team lead that's assigned to these guys. We have five team leads total, and then we have a director of advising for a specific sport. And then that carries through all the other sports and the divisions as well. And then from there, as like it keeps growing, if we need to add another position under, or another like set of leaders, we can do that, as long as it's kept to like five groups of five basically per small group. So I don't know if that answered the question, but it's just
Yeah.
basically a way to structure it in a way where they're incentivized to do it. Everybody's incentivized at each stage for each little group to succeed. And that's how the system kind of keeps running itself. I don't
And
have to go ahead and do like the micromanaging or anything like that. It's more of like there's this, our meetings basically are centered. Is there systemic things that we need to change to help assist the team to better do their job? That's the stuff that I think about in the incentive.
what I really respect, and I learned this early with you, and I believe this is a just an absolute foundational piece for any business for it to grow. That right, like there has to be energy, time, attention, resources put for the new business, right? If you are so involved in the day to day of whatever it is, and you don't have time to grow the business, that's typically the nail in the coffin for a lot of people. How did you get to a place where, one, you even learned that, and do you kind of celebrate the fact that you are doing that? I mean, your business is growing because you are spearheading in some way the growth of new business, new angles.
Yeah, I would say so. To answer the first question, how I learned it, honestly, a lot of YouTube videos and people I follow. I follow Alex Harmozy, who's a phenomenal resource for business owners on YouTube. Like anybody that has a business should definitely follow him, because he has phenomenal books that he gives away for free, phenomenal YouTube videos, tutorials, and resources. So he's one I follow. I followed other people too, and just out of curiosity, I kept like looking, okay, how do you grow a business? How do you go about it? And just kept learning little tricks and trying things over time. And the biggest thing I've learned is it's all about the systems. The systems you put in place in your business is what's going to either drive growth or is what's going to limit you. And in these systems, the way to prioritize and really go for the signal is, okay, what's my biggest bottleneck in my business right now? And you have to be able to measure things, because if you don't measure things properly, you won't find those bottlenecks. But if you're measuring things properly and you're like, okay, what's the biggest thing that I have to go and focus on right now? Whether that's your hiring process, whether that's getting more leads that come into your funnel, whether that's your close rate being down, whatever that is, as the CEO or the business owner, you have to say, okay, this is my biggest bottleneck. How do I fix this? And you have to solve that problem at a system level. If you're able to accurately define what your biggest bottlenecks are, find creative solutions to fix them, put systems in place so they kind of run themselves, and you move on to the next bottleneck, the next one. If you keep doing that, that's how a business grows over time.
What what do you think the next 5 years looks like for you? Not so much just for AHA, but obviously you're growing that into with some new technologies and really cutting edge stuff, um, along with all of the other stuff you have your hands in with your residency about becoming a doctor. I mean, what 5 years? What are you going to be, the hockey playing doctor that's starting tech companies, and like what are you doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, there's no clear answer, because I've just learned like through time, you never know where life's going to take you. I'd like to think I have a vision in my head, but it's hard to say. But I would say if I had to guess, I want to go into sports medicine. That's another, I have about a year left in residency, and then sports medicine's another 1 year fellowship. So it'd be done in like 2 years or so. Ideally, where I'd like to see myself is working as a sports medicine doc with elite athletes, maybe once or twice a week. Nothing too crazy, no like 6 day a week clinic days or anything like that. So keep that more relaxed, but I get to keep my skills up and all that stuff. And then on the hockey agency and sportability side, really like make sure the hockey agency is still growing. I trust Stefano with that 100%, so I don't have to put too much time into that. I would say really going all in on the sportability piece, which we haven't touched too much on, but it's basically a software that we think is going to be the LinkedIn of sports. So for me, this piece right now is really exciting me, and it's taken
Do you
most
want
of
to
my.
do you want to do you want to chat about it? It's totally up to you.
It's up to you, honestly, if
Yeah,
it's useful.
I would. Well, I mean, it's incredibly impressive. What you just said is pretty spot on. I had the chance to see both kind of the front end of it and the back end of it. If you wanted to chat about it for a couple of minutes, what it is and what you think it might be capable of.
Yeah, so the easiest way to think about it is kind of like what I said is a LinkedIn of sports. So how it works is it has a massive database on the back end, and you can look up any player, any coach, any team, any league, whatever it is, you can find it because there's data on there on the platform. And from there, why it becomes useful is because it allows players and parents to connect to their profiles and for the players to get seen by coaches. And on the flip side, the coaches have a bunch of useful tools on there where they can actually find players, recruit them, message them, all of these things. And actually, like it's so embedded with all these useful tools. It's basically the vision behind it is for it to become the operational system of sports. So for coaches to basically have the one-stop shop where they can go and recruit players, and then players one-stop shop to be able to talk to coaches, put their profiles out there, put their video on, and all of that stuff. So the goal with it is like for the one encompassing ecosystem in all of hockey, and then as we expand to other sports, for it to do that as well. So that's the vision and where it's at right now.
Do you remember the moment, right? Because I mean that is a massive undertaking. I mean I've seen it. The amount of time, energy, I can't even imagine what went into that. Um, do you remember when you kind of came up with that concept, or your team came up with that concept? Because some people I think would be so caught up in the how can we do it versus this thing just needs to be built. I don't know how we're going to get there, but I know we need to get there. How do you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. So it's a two-step process. So it started a few years ago because what we get the most common question we get from coaches, from players and parents as agents and advisors is what are my odds of playing for this team or this league or whatever it is? And we know based on like our experience, know our knowledge of all different leagues and all that stuff, but the average person doesn't know. And even some coaches for more obscure leagues, they have no idea how to evaluate these players. They look at them. So it first started with what we call our probability tool. And from there, we're like, can we put our knowledge with historical data where if you put a player's name or a team's name into this tool, it spits out where they've advanced people. So for example, if you're a 2008 forward who plays in the BCHL that has zero point 0.5 points per game, what are your odds of actually moving on to the different levels? And what the probability tools does is it basically takes all the similar players of the past years and it spits out and shows exactly where these people moved on. So it gives you an idea of what your odds are of moving on. Same thing with teams as well. So that's kind of where we started. So that was the idea. We got fortunate enough where Stefano actually knew three developers that he worked with in the past that saw the vision. They're hockey guys. They understood and they helped us build it. So that was like version one. We built it out. We saw a lot of traction there. And we're like, okay, if this is possible, we then noticed like through time in AHA using a bunch of different tools like Elite Prospects, using RinkNet, using a bunch of different tools. We're like, and Google Sheets, like, oh my God, the amount of different scattered tools that we use, we're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And then we kept like iterating, developing. We're like, you know what? Like, I think we can combine all of these into one. And then as we started tinkering with it, we're like, man, I think we can actually do like this LinkedIn idea and apply it to this platform. And we kept tinkering and we kept showing people, they kept giving us feedback. And at a certain point, we're like, man, I think we can actually do the LinkedIn of sports. I think this is actually possible. And we launched it recently a few months ago, and then it's just been kind of going ever since. So that's the origin story and how it kind of came about.
Had you ever been a part of something like that had you could kind of see it, right? But the distance between where you were standing at that moment to the end of actually getting it to go live, like that chasm must have been so big.
Yeah, it's and that's the hard part. Honestly, it's you have this vision and you explain it to people, and it takes a lot of work and effort for people to understand your vision. And guaranteed, and this is with anything in life, if you tell somebody I'm going to make the NHL, I'm going to create the LinkedIn of sports, I'm going to create an agency that takes over the market, whatever it is, everyone's gonna be like, it's impossible. You can't do it. Like the amount of people that said Braden, like the amount of resources, the amount of this, the amount of that, like we cannot do this, you know? And I just say, watch me. we're gonna find a way. And I think that if you can have that as a hockey player or as you're going through life in whatever you do, if you set your goal to something and you have a vision and you follow through and you find ways to get it done, it's possible. You just got to be able to go through all the shit, like to go through all the people telling you it's impossible, all the obstacles you kind of come about, and finding solutions to every problem that you come about. So,
Was there ever a time in this endeavor where you said, "Oh man, I bit off more than I could chew here. This is not gonna come. This is not gonna happen." Were there moments like that?
yeah, like quite a few. Just it's extremely like the
Is
software.
that what happened to your bangs? You pulled them out. Is that why you have that haircut?
That's it.
Oh, I'm kidding. I'm not one to make hair jokes, so come on. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's honestly, there's quite a few times where it happened. So even right now, we're facing like for the video piece. It's actually a lot more complicated than we thought it was going to be. There's a lot of like legal rights and video rights and this and that, and it's quite complex. But like anything, there's a way to solve it. You just got to become creative with it. So
I think a lot of people, it seems to me that when people are faced with those situations, right, because we're humans, like those emotions are totally real. But what I'm really hearing a lot of, and you probably see it a lot too in your world, is that the people who seem to always be learning, they have those sad, angry, frustrated emotions also, but they move through that very, very quickly into the, well, now what do we do phase. Like, okay, now what? Right? They don't linger in that place very much. And I think that that's not the easiest of things, right? People want sometimes to live in that, I'm going to call it misery, but they either think they're weak or they're not tough because they feel the frustration. But it sounds like what you're saying is it's normal to feel it. It's just, okay, we wake up tomorrow and we keep rolling.
that's pretty much it. Honestly, like you said, everybody feels these things. And as you're feeling, if you're frustrated, actually you can use that as fuel. You can be like, you know what? Use this anger, frustration, sadness, whatever the feeling you're feeling. You can actually use it as fuel. And Tim Grover actually refers to this as the dark side. Into your shadow or your dark side and using that energy to go into into the positive direction. Now, you gotta be careful with it because if you overdo it, then it can definitely be destructive. But if you harness it in the right ways, whenever that anger, that frustration comes, it's actually a really good fuel source for the most part.
If you had to give somebody advice on this, I'm just curious about this. Which of the two would you tell them that it's more important to go out and have that fuel be because you're trying to prove others wrong, or to go out and try and prove yourself right? This is going to be a true test right now to see
Yeah,
how conniving are you? Are you out there just trying to beat others down, or like try to prove them wrong, or ultimately is it for you to say, you know what, I'm going to prove myself right?
I think it. If I had to answer honestly, it's usually you know what I can do this. And it's a mix of both because sometimes like I picture like all the voices who told
Yeah,
me you
feels
can't do it.
good. Feels good to say giant F you to them.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like they told me I can't do this, and I'm gonna find a way to do this. So it's proving them wrong, but it's also like I can do this, and to prove yourself, right? So I would say it might be a cop out answer, but it's a mix of both, honestly.
It's a little bit of a cop out, but that's okay. It's okay. Um, so if I had to ask you, wrapping up here, the show obviously is called Always Coachable. For you, what do you think that means? I would definitely put you in that category. It would be impossible for you to have achieved the things that you have achieved in your life and that you are continuing to achieve without kind of living that. But for you, what do you think that means?
It's somebody who's always looking to learn, grow, and get better at whatever their goals are. And it's somebody who has the confidence to move forward, but also the humility to take people's advice and take whatever they can to try and get better, honestly. Now, obviously, you can't like you weigh different people's advice differently. Like people you really respect that you think have a lot of expertise in a certain field, you're going to take their advice more than somebody who doesn't have as much expertise. That being said, they're always trying to get the best of everybody. They're always trying to, pull in as much information as they can and figure out what's the signal from the noise, what's true, what's not true, what works, what can help me advance in my goals. So if you have that constant curious mindset, to always try and get better, always trying to find what works, I would say that's a coachable person and a coachable person throughout life and no matter what they do. So,
Yep. If people want to learn more about you from the AHA side, or if they want to start filing their malpractice lawsuits against you, where can they find you?
you can find us anywhere on social media. Honestly, you type in Advancement Hockey Agency, Instagram, we're all over the place. TikTok, we're on there. You can find us on our website. You can find us on YouTube. Really, if you Google it, you'll typically find our stuff. So,
Well, in all seriousness, I have a great respect for you, and as I learn more about you, very, very impressive, just individual. And I really appreciate you giving me the time here and giving just some amazing feedback about you and the lessons you've learned. So I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And to everyone listening, thanks for spending the time with us here on Always Coachable. If this gave you something, share it with someone who you think is still growing. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube at Sandy Cohen. The best never think they've arrived. So stay curious, stay humble, stay coachable. I'm Sandy Cohen, and I will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.